It's really nice to be here. My talk is called The Future of Well-Being. And before I go into the future, let me go a little bit into the past, my past. I'm a physician, and my training is in neuroscience and neuroendocrinology, which is the study of brain chemistry. And when I was practicing, I was intrigued by the fact that you could have two patients who had exactly the same illness, saw the same physician, and got the same treatment, and could have completely different outcomes. So very early in my career, I realized that at least bioscience was not an exact science. Biology was not an exact science, that we as biological organisms, and particularly as human beings, are quite unpredictable in the way we respond to everything, including illness. At the same time, my own research was in the area of, as I mentioned, neuroscience and neuroendocrinology. And this was a very exciting time for us because during the 1970s, because of a new technique called radioimmunoassay, we were discovering the molecules of emotion. So today, you, of course, recognize some of these molecules. Serotonin, antidepressants are serotonin uptake inhibitors. Dopamine, opiates, same as endorphins, oxytocin, which is associated with pleasure and sexual excitement and emotional bonding. And there are many others. But for us, this was a very exciting time because we could actually see them. And we knew that there was a chemical substrate to what happens in consciousness. That what happens in your consciousness, in your mind, has a direct effect on your biology. These molecules, later we discovered, had receptors to them in immune cells, which of course protect you from all kinds of illnesses, including cancer and infection and a number of other illnesses. So your immune cells, little T cells, B cells, macrophages that circulate in your body, they have little receptors to these molecules. In other words, those cells are eavesdropping on your internal dialogue. Somebody inside you is having a conversation with themselves. In a moment, we're going to try and figure out who this person is and what their local address might be. But I think you'll agree, whoever this person is, he or she or it never shuts up. The conversation is going on all the time. It's going on right now as you're listening to me, evaluating me. It goes on in your dreams. It goes on in your sleep, and your immune cells are listening. Not only are they listening, they participate in this conversation because your immune cells can make the same peptides, the same proteins, as your brain does when you have a thought. In fact, if you ask a good neurobiologist today, what's the difference between the immune system and the nervous system, they'll tell you there isn't any. The immune system is a circulating nervous system. It thinks, it remembers, it makes choices in the face of challenges. It just doesn't think in English with an Indian accent. But for all practical purposes, it's conscious. Your immune cells are conscious. And today, 30 years later, we know this about the whole body. So today when you say, I have a gut feeling about such and such, you're not speaking metaphorically at all. You're speaking literally. Your gut makes the same chemicals as your brain does when you think or emote. In fact, you can trust your gut feelings a little more because gut cells haven't evolved yet to the stage where they doubt their own thinking. Today, we also know that our heart cells, the heart which pumps blood is considered a pump. It's actually an organ of emotions as well. It has receptors to oxytocin and dopamine and all of that. And so it may very well be true when you say my heart is broken, that's a fact, literally, structurally. Okay, or when you say I'm in love, then it's a completely different chemical composition. In fact, we call these cells neurocardiocytes because they are neurons as well as muscles. To make a long story short, your mind has escaped your brain. It's in all the cells of your body. And now to make a longer story short, because this is 30 years of work and research in various places, when you put it all together, here are some principles that I want to tell you about that, in fact, give us an idea what the future of well-being is going to be. The first principle is that your body is not a structure. It's a process. When we went to medical school, we were trained in structures, anatomical structures. The first thing you learn in medical school is anatomy. That's about structures. But your body is a process. It's not a noun, it's a verb. And your body recycles once a year. So at the atomic level, you recycle your stomach every 5 days. Your liver once every 6 weeks. Your skin once a month. Your skeleton, which is hard and solid, is new every 3 months. Your genes, which carry the memory of millions of years of evolution. Genes are fascinating structures, little things that replicate to make you who you are today. Your genes carry the memory of millions of years of evolution. So 65% of your genes are the same as a banana. 80% of your genes are the same as a mouse. And 98.4% of your genes are the same as a monkey. All of recorded history is there since 2.8 billion years of evolution, when the first microorganisms called chemolithoautotrophic hyperthermophiles appeared on the rims of volcanoes. But the actual raw material of your genes, it comes and goes every 6 weeks. So the carbon, the hydrogen, the molecules that make up your genes, it's like migratory birds. It wasn't there 6 weeks ago. And in approximately 1 year, you've recycled your body almost down to the last atom. This is my year 2011 model. Okay? And the last time I came to Arizona, I brought with me the same suitcase, but not the same body, because my suitcase has a longer shelf life. And the body I brought with me last time, it's dead, it's gone. It came from the biosphere. It's now recirculating in the biosphere. And as far as I'm personally concerned, it's gone, it's dead. But since I haven't died in the meanwhile, I hope you'll agree this is scientific proof for the existence of life after death. Because as conscious beings with memories and desires and emotions, we are constantly outliving the death of the molecules through which we express ourselves. Okay, so your body is a process. What about your mind? Your mind is, and by the way, this process is part of the biosphere. Your body doesn't belong to you. In fact, you have 1 million atoms in your body right now that were once in the body of Jesus Christ and Osama bin Laden too. In just the last 3 weeks, a quadrillion atoms, which is 10 followed by 15 zeros, have gone through your body that have gone through the body of every other living species on this planet. So even with one breath, you inhale 10 to the power of 22 atoms. You breathe out 10 to the power of 22 atoms, which is 10 followed by 22 zeros. And these atoms are coming from every little bit of your heart and kidney and brain tissue. And so technically speaking, you're breathing out bits and pieces of your heart and kidney and brain, and we're all intimately sharing our organs with each other all the time. So first principle, you can't call your body yours. It doesn't belong to you. It's the biosphere recycling through who you call yourself. Second principle, the mind is also a process. And the best definition I found of the mind is from a UCLA psychotherapist who says that the mind is an embodied and relational process that regulates the flow of energy and information. I'll repeat that. The mind is a relational and embodied process that regulates the flow of energy and information. So here we go. Relational, because your mind is always in relationship with other minds. There's a saying in Africa, Ubuntu, I am because you are. Or as President Nelson Mandela said, people are people because of people. We don't have minds by ourselves. We relate to each other, and this relational process gets embodied both horizontally, and these days through social networks even more horizontally, through Twitter and Facebook and the internet, but also vertically. Our minds are influenced by our parents' minds and their parents' minds, history, culture, mythology, economics. So mind is everywhere, and it's circulating everywhere. And this is the entangled mind, both through time and space, that then regulates the flow of energy and information in our bodies. So if somebody says to you, I love you, and you're in love with that person, you have a certain biological response. But if you're thinking of divorcing them and they say, I love you, you have a different biological response. The tympanic membrane vibrates with the same energy, the words are the same, but the meaning, the information is different. And the information gets metabolized in your consciousness to create a biological response. So the second principle again, our mind is an entangled mind. It's a process. It's regulating the flow of energy and information in our bodies. The third principle is there's no mental event that does not have a brain representation. We know that now thanks to functional magnetic resonance scans. We know that due to new technologies, PET scans. So for every mental event you have, there's a brain representation. This is a good handy model for the brain. So when you think reflectively or having an intellectual conversation, your cortical brain lights up. If you're having an emotional interaction, your limbic brain, which is connected to your hypothalamus and pituitary, lights up. If you're scared, your midbrain, which is also called the reptilian brain, lights up. I remember when we were in medical school, we used to remember the functions of the midbrain as the 4 Fs: feeding, fighting, fleeing, and reproduction. And so this is the brain that acts up when we're in one of those modes and gets us into a lot of trouble. Okay, so there's nothing that happens in the mind that doesn't happen in the brain. There's nothing that happens in the brain that doesn't happen in the body. And our bodies are entangled, and our minds are entangled. And now we come to a deeper level beyond the mind and the body, what great spiritual traditions have called the soul or the spirit or core consciousness, which transcends the mind and the body. And I can give you a little bit of experience of that right now. So as you're listening to me, just turn your attention to who's listening. As you're listening to me, be aware of who's listening. There's a core consciousness there. It's a very simple awareness. It was there when you were a baby, when you were a child, when you were a teenager. It's there now. And it's not conditioned by labels, evaluations, who you are, CEO, how much money you have. That's what spiritual traditions call the soul. And that consciousness, being unconditioned, is a place of creativity and insight and intuition and imagination and choice and freedom and possibility and uncertainty. Because in the proliferation of uncertainty, there's an ongoing creative process. And the great wisdom traditions have said, if you hold on to that, you will see that it's your ticket to freedom. Okay, so since I have 7 minutes left, I'm now going to summarize everything in the following slides. This is the thesis of my talk, that consciousness, which is the ground of our existence, differentiates into everything that we call reality. Whether it's personal relationships or social interactions or perception or cognition or environment or moods and emotions, and that if we get an idea of this place of freedom, we simultaneously affect everything else. The emerging paradigm, and I drew this slide after a Google conference, by the way, year 2000, last year, 22nd of October, on quantum biology, which is a new frontier. Quantum biology says that we must now begin to understand biological organisms in terms of mathematics and physics and information theory. It's time to do that. Biology has been left behind with all the other advances. So quantum biology is a new frontier. And I have to congratulate Google. Last year they had the first conference, worldwide conference on quantum biology, to begin to see the body as states of information and energy. And this will be the future of medicine, when we'll in fact use technologies to maximize the flow of information and energy in our bodies. And with this emerging paradigm, we are beginning to see that our biological organism acts as a single integrated wholeness. Your thoughts, your images, your breath, your perception, your feelings, your emotions, your neurotransmitters, your cardiac function are all part of a wholeness and integration, which takes us away from the reductionist model in science, which was always studying bits and pieces to understand the whole. And the new model says you have to understand the whole to see the bits and pieces as parts of behavior of the whole. And this is just for interest. When you fall in love, that's the best thing that can happen to you, because your brain lights up in many areas and you start to resonate with the person that you're in love with, and you in fact regulate and get regulated by, monitor and get monitored by the relationship in the direction of self-repair or homeostasis. So no longer is this a myth that love is a healing energy. Love is in fact the most powerful way to return to homeostasis or baseline biology. This slide, don't worry about the complications of this. I'm a senior scientist at Gallup, and as you may know, Gallup has specialized for 100 years in asking the right questions to get the right models of well-being, and today we are doing this on a massive scale in over 150 countries, and we measure well-being in the following categories: career well-being, social well-being, physical well-being, financial well-being, and community well-being. Career well-being can be answered with just the answers to the following questions. Are you happy with what you do every day? Are you using your strengths? Do you have fun? And are you reinforcing the strengths of other people with whom you work? And you know, we have a strength finders test that we do employ, where we engage with people to create coherent teams where people reinforce their strengths and encourage each other, because we found that if your manager ignores you, your rate of disengagement goes up to 45%. If your manager criticizes you, you get better, 20%, because now you're at least being acknowledged. And if your manager notices a single strength that you have, rate of disengagement goes down to less than 1%. This has huge economic implications, about, according to our Gallup data, about $280 billion a year. Similarly, social engagement. If you have a happy friend, your happiness goes up by 15%. And if your happy friend has a happy friend that you don't know, it goes up another 10%. And if your happy friend's happy friend has a happy friend whom you don't know, it keeps going up. And this is the entangled mind. We say, how can this be? That the happiness of people whom I don't know affects me and my well-being, including my enemies, by the way. And there are two reasons how this happens. When two people are having a conversation, let's say you and me, it's all the people in my life that influence the conversation and all the people in your life. If you're worried about your child and I'm worried about the economic crisis and how it affects me, it's going to cause entanglement and disrupt our biology. And then the people in my life have people in their life, and so on. Physical well-being, very simple. By my friend Dean Ornish, who has already spoken here, has already talked to you about genetic indeterminism and neuroplasticity, and even the reversal of biological markers of aging, which we can assess so easily these days through technology. And these are the characteristics of physical well-being and financial well-being. There's a lot of research we've done, but it boils down to one simple thing. If you haven't bought into the idea of spending money that you haven't earned to buy things that you don't need to impress people that you don't like, then you're probably going to be okay. And then finally, community well-being, which is doing something for the larger cause. So with that, I'd like to conclude my talk with the fundamental conclusions. Your body is a process, not a structure. The time is coming to see it as an energy and information field. Your genes are not deterministic. You can turn them on and off. You can rewire your brain. You can change your relationship to time. And the key to all this lies in your own consciousness. As far as the future is concerned, I think we're going to see technologies that will improve neuroplasticity through various instruments, including all these little gadgets that measure our calorie expenditure, our cardiovascular ability, are neural mechanisms. So bioregulation is part of the future, gene modulation and enzyme induction through using really natural processes in our body, but using information technologies, personalized medicine, stem cell and cloning, not from the outside, but using your own body's inner intelligence, which is the ultimate and supreme genius and mirrors the wisdom of the universe, your own cells that have evolved over billions of years of time to formidable intelligence. And finally, the era of personalized medicine, when you'll have in your handheld device everything you need to know about yourself, everything you need to know, and visually. You don't have to be an expert. So by the time you leave the physician's office and come home, you have a visual representation of your arteries, of your brain, everything, exactly what to do and the instructions. And with a little bit of training, use your handheld device to move nano robots in your body to do what you want them to do. Thank you.